Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Brent Kendall.
What key life experiences have formed who you are today?
I grew up in a household in a home that my mother designed. My mother was a designer, interiors, did some architecture, did some landscape architecture, and my parents actually built the home that I grew up in. I'd always been artistic as far as drawing. About when I don't know 10 years old or so, my mother opened a Frank Lloyd Wright book, and I didn't know anything about Frank Lloyd Wright up to that point. And I literally look back at that day as that's the day I decided to become an architect.
How did you become passionate and involved in design?
I grew up in the Chicago area, which is kind of a mecca of modern architecture, if you will. I mean, High Rise was born there, and you've got Lou Sullivan, and you've got Frank Lloyd Wright, and you've got Mies van der Rohe, and Chicago is a unique place, like a few others, maybe New York and London and a few places where common everyday people talk about architecture. My mother spent a lot of time taking me to different Frank Lloyd Wright sites and that sort of thing.
What are your core values and how are they reflected in your practice?
The thing that means the most to me is integrity. That's the first thing I would say, kind of core values wise, and I think that carries over into architecture. I think that design should be honest. That's how I kind of feel about my design philosophy, if you will. That's something that's been instilled in me. I think I'm probably more of a minimalist. It's more challenging to try to take things away, to come up with a design that is so pure, or to get to the essence of what it's all about. You take away all the noise, if you will. You take away all the fluff and all of that, things that don't have substance, until you get to that point where if you take away another thing, it's not as good anymore.
What is your design process?
One of the problems in a lot of residential design is that a client might be walking around their house during construction and go, I didn't realize it was going to look like that. We want to avoid that. So we start with 3D from the very beginning. So once we get a survey of a site, the very first thing we do is we model it in 3D. We get all the zoning information, all of the, anything that's going to restrict or form the building envelope. And then beyond the sketches, like I'm doing right now, plans and maybe some loose sketches, we design everything in 3D through the design process until the client says, yes, that's it. And then at that point, that's when we go to CAD for elevations and sections and things like that. Most residential architecture firms, I don't really see doing it that much. They all use 3D to some extent, but they don't use it right from the very beginning like we do.
How do you collaborate with other individuals to realize your impactful work?
I worked for a company that I ended up working for 20 years. We started as an architecture firm, and that's all we did. Eventually, we did interior design, we did graphic design, we did landscape architecture, we did land planning, we did space planning. We kind of created everything. And through that process, it really opened my eyes to the power of collaboration.
Where is design going, in your opinion?
I have to believe the biggest element of change or cause of change is the computer. So, the computer came along and people started putting things in CAD, and there was a lot of advantages to that. Today, you have the ability to design something in a computer that is more complex than maybe anything I could even think of.
What are the biggest challenges you face?
Probably budgets.
Budgets?
Budgets, yeah. Construction cost. It's tough. When I started my residential practice 18 years ago, houses were costing like $200 a square foot. Our average house costs somewhere between $600 and $1,000 a square foot now.
What advice would you give to a young student?
To me, passion is everything. So, the people that work for me are passionate about the work we do. Whatever it is, I just think you have to have a passion for it. Whether you're an attorney or an architect or anything, you need to find joy in what you do.